Hey, what's up guys? My name's Jared. This is my channel. This is going to be another quick update video. I've made some progress this week on both the Honda and the Land Cruiser. So let's get into it. So for the Honda, I've been working on the steering wheel for quite a while. There'll be a video showing the whole process. But basically, this whole front section was missing and the rear section was missing several pieces to it. So I had to, it took a long time. I had to use a router, and I made this front piece out of one solid piece of maple. And then I had to steam and bend the pieces that go on the back. So it's going to be a pretty long video just showing how I do it, even really just showing kind of the overview of how I did it. But it is coming together. I've been coating it, and I had to stain the back of it is kind of a dark wood and the front is maple, which is a light wood, because that's just what I had on hand, and it's a good wood. It's a hard wood, so I was hopeful that it wouldn't break, because I knew it was going to be very small by the time I was done with the router, and it didn't break. But of course I had to stain it to try to make it match as close as I can the back. So I stained it, and then also the varnish that I'm using, I've been adding the stain to that to make it darker, to help blend it all in. So I think once it's going to go through several more coats and more sanding, and I think when it's done, it's going to come out okay. Not perfect by any means, but it'll be usable, which it was not at all usable before. So that's the steering wheel for the Honda. I've been working on that. My last video for the Honda was the rear end. I opened up this chain plate and inspected it. It looked amazing in there. There are little rollers, there are chain guides, and they're kind of a rubber type material. And I read, and everyone says that because they're like 50 years old, that they're not going to be useful. They're just going to crumble. They're going to be in terrible shape, and that's what I expected. But those were actually in amazing condition. They still have a little bit of rubbery flex to them, but they just looked incredible. Even the gasket around here looked amazing. I ordered new gaskets to replace, to put new gaskets on both sides, but the new gasket material is not the same as the material they use from the factory. And this gasket looked so good that I didn't even want to replace it with the new one. I think the old one is going to be better. Now, of course, I have the new one, so if these leak, I can replace them. And in fact, you can see that this side might have already been leaking, and if that's the case, then I will be replacing that one. But it actually looks to me like the source of the leak is farther up. I think it's around that joint there. So my plan is to get this thing running and driving, and drive it a little bit, and then see where the leak's coming from. I need to clean this area, but I don't want to do that in the shop here. I want to get the car outside and use the pressure washer to clean this. So I'm going to wait until I can get it out of the garage to do that. But once I clean it and drive it a little bit, I'll be able to find out exactly where the leaks are coming from. And then I can just fix those areas and not take things apart that don't need to be taken apart. Because really, at this point, this thing is in such good condition that I might be doing more harm than good by taking some of it apart. The other thing I've been working on here with the Honda are the brake lines. These obviously are not, I'm not going to use these. They're too old and they'd be brittle. There's a company locally that makes them. You can just walk in with this and they'll make them while you wait. I'll probably try to mail them just because of all the crazy lockdowns and stuff with the coronavirus. But so I have that one off. I've been trying to get this front brake line off, and I definitely want to do that before I put the engine in because it's much easier to get to. But I've got some penetrating oil on it now. I've done that several times actually over the last few months. So I'm trying to loosen that up, and then I'll be able to get the new brake lines made, and then I'll do a video where I go through all the brakes and rebuild them. I do have some new seals for the brake cylinders and things, so I should be able to rebuild them hopefully with what I have. The piston rings for the engine, you can see I've got, the engine is still disassembled over here. So I did order that one new set of piston rings. Like I said, it's probably going to be about 2 weeks before it gets here. And I didn't get any kind of tracking number, so I really never know when those are going to show up. They just show up when they show up. But hopefully in another week or so I'll have that. But okay, so that's the Honda. So on the Land Cruiser, I just put out a video recently where I rebuilt the hubs and I installed new brakes. I just did this one in the video, but since then, just today actually, I finished up this side as well. Now, when I first installed these, I had both of these springs on the outside here. This one was also on the outside. And luckily I got a comment from somebody, and they even sent me a link showing me the information that was incorrect. The front spring actually goes inside of the brake shoes, like this. And then the rear spring goes outside. So I'm very grateful for that comment. I was able to catch that. Well, I didn't catch it, but I was able to fix it before it caused any problems. So very grateful for that. The other thing, well, the next project for the Land Cruiser is going to be the fuel injection. So here's the other thing. So in my last update video, I mentioned I have these 2 coolant sensor locations, and somebody was kind enough to respond with a possible explanation of why there's the second one, and that is that this might be an F2 head, even though the engine is an F1. That is possible. It got me very concerned, and I started doing a lot of research, and I still am not convinced that this is the correct head, but here's what I've figured out. So the engine has flat pistons. This head, if you watch the video where I cleaned it up, has room for the coned pistons, and the F2 engines had this type of head on it with coned pistons. But it seems like maybe in 71, 72, or maybe just 72, this is a 1972, they may have actually used this head on this engine. Now, it doesn't have the coned pistons, which doesn't make sense to me. But the things that make me feel like this might be the correct head is, one, it has this F stamped in it. I don't know if you can read that, it's upside down, but it has an F stamped there. There's no 2F, just F. This number, we've got 460051, and then we've got 0605. I haven't been able to find confirmed information on what years these numbers would have matched, but it seems like they might actually match 72 for this engine. Also, if you guys watch Project Wrong Way, that's another guy, he's here in Northern California. He's rebuilding, his Land Cruiser that he's rebuilding is also a 1972. Now, he swapped the engine out of it, but the old engine, there's a video of his where he was taking, actually his wife, Rachel, was taking off this intake manifold so that he could reuse it on the new engine. And if you watch that video, he has this exact same head. It also has this second temperature sensor port on it. And it also seems to have these studs, which the early F engines did not have these front and rear studs. There was just nothing there, which is crazy. But the F2 engines did. So I'm hoping that for some reason this was just kind of the filling in the gap between the F engines and the F2 engines. I know that people say there's an F1.5 engine. Maybe that this is kind of in that area. So I'm hoping that this is the correct head, even though it seems that without those cone-shaped pistons, it's going to have lower compression ratio than it should. But anyways, I'm going to keep moving forward, assuming that this is the correct head. If you guys know for sure that it's not, please let me know, and I'm going to replace it. And once I get it running, if I have an issue with the compression being too low, then that's definitely something I'm going to consider will be to get a different head, get one of the earlier style heads. My concern now with getting the earlier style head is that do I then have to replace the header because it's not going to have these attachment points, or can I maybe drill and tap out a place for those studs on the earlier head? And then also with the earlier head, then I need to plumb in a temperature sensor for the fuel injection. I mean, maybe I could add something here, but that it just opens up more issues that I'd rather not deal with if this head is the correct one. This does have, I'm not going to pull this off right now, but it does have the oil feed line like the earlier F engines had. Some of the F2 heads I think have oil flowing through the actual head itself to oil the rocker arms, but this doesn't. It has the earlier style oil tube, and you can see that in the previous video I did where I assembled it. So anyway, if you guys, if anyone out there is a real expert about this and they know for sure what the situation is on this head, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with it as it is for now. And then if I have to, I can replace the head. That's not that big of a deal. I don't mind doing it. They're not crazy expensive. It's something I'm definitely willing to do. I'm not convinced yet that it needs a different head on it. This may actually be the right one. So anyway, that's what it is. Okay, so one other quick thing before I wrap up this video. I mentioned before I installed this second pulley. This is, I believe, manufactured by or sold by Vintage Air, which is where I got the air conditioning kit from. And this pulley is larger than the pulley that's on the harmonic balancer. It appears to me from looking into it that the harmonic balancers on the earlier engines are smaller. The ones on the older engines are larger. So what I'm trying to do now, I looked at getting one of these stock pulleys that has the double pulley, but it looks like the front pulley on those is smaller. It takes a smaller belt, and I need this large belt to run the compressor. So I need this type of second pulley. I don't think the stock double pulley would work. I could be wrong, but they're also very expensive, $200 to $500. But the harmonic balancer off of a later engine, an F2 engine, I can find those and they're not that expensive with just a single pulley. And they have the larger diameter pulley, and then when I add this, they should match up because I believe that's what this was built to match up with. So again, if you guys, the experts out there that may be helping me with the head information, if you know if there's an issue with putting a harmonic balancer off of an F2 engine onto an F engine, an F1 engine, please let me know, because that's going to be my next approach. I'm already I'm bidding on one on eBay right now. So my plan is to just replace the harmonic balancer and keep this pulley, and then hopefully that gives me the setup that I need. So again, I would appreciate any info on that. And just so you guys know, I'm clearly no expert on Land Cruisers or really much of anything. I've never had a Land Cruiser before. I've never even driven one before. It's the first time I've ever worked on one. So I'm no expert. I appreciate all the help I can get. So, you know, feel free to leave whatever info you have in the comments. I appreciate it. So, okay. All right. So that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Okay. Bye.